Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to thank you again for having giving me this opportunity. I'm glad to sit down with you and for World Happiness Week. I'm, excited to just find out what you think are the keys towards being happy from your perspective. Like, what is the key for people to be happy?
Mm. I think one of the keys for happiness in this world is really to have a deep relationship with yourself and to know who you are and what you want. And that process of self-discovery is a process of ever deepening happiness. It's also, when you have a sense of self-discovery and you get to really know yourself, then you're good at making the hard decisions about your life and knowing what is right for you or wrong for you. One of the things that I think leads to a great deal of unhappiness is when people feel unfulfilled and or that they have no agency. And that often comes from having, made decisions that might have been based on what other people thought you were as opposed to who you really feel like you are.
Mhm.
And so I think that, as we get better and better at that, we get happier. What I'd love to see happen is that, often people get to the point where they have that level of self-knowledge. Um, it often happens later in life.
Mhm.
But I think that, one of the things about transformative technology and then also just a modern world is if we can start to help people earlier in life,
Mhm.
develop the practices that make their own inner voice more discernible. So meditation or, um, help them, experiment and discover what they like more. So like, companies like Skillprint that are helping people find their passions, things like that. The earlier people have those experiences, then, the earlier they can, experience greater happiness. Or, products like Happify, which have taken
Mhm.
the positive psychology literature and made it really accessible in small, microbytes and mini games that allow people to understand happiness as a skill,
Yeah.
and to have it accessible to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like as a collective, like we're as Transformative Tech Organization and the World Happiness Organization and other like-minded partners, I mean we're literally shifting the world, but how big of an impact do you think that we're making right now, and like where do you think we have to go in terms of attaining world happiness?
Well, I mean, one of the things that happened this year, COVID, with all of its tragedy, what it has done is, you know, for the first time in modern human history, um, everyone has a shared experience. And there isn't anyone that you know who either didn't struggle over the last year or doesn't know someone that they love, care for, and respect who struggled. And
Mhm.
so there's this, shared thing that instead of, mental health and emotional challenges and loneliness and disconnection being something that was happening over there to someone else, it is now over here
Yeah.
for everyone. And that's really important because in order to make a market, you have to have need, demand, and means. And
Mhm.
so for the means side, that's really accelerated in the last 5 years from a technological standpoint, because everywhere that AI is, you'll find transformative tech, as
Mhm.
well as, reduction in cost around sensors and sensor proliferation. And then, need, well, that was already there. We already all knew sort of like the state of the human mind or the world mind, levels of stress, anxiety, depression, that sort of thing that was out there, but it was still something that was ignorable by
Mhm.
many people. And so demand is really all about culture, and
Mhm.
culture and stigma are closely related. And so the stigma has really been, ratcheted way down because it's real. It's been real. We've all been out here people been peopling for the last year.
Yeah.
And, it's something that it's like, yeah, that's a real thing. Mm.
Yeah. Exactly. What books should we be reading, Nicole?
Well, I'm a big fan of conscious leadership group. I think there's a book called The 15 Commitments of a Conscious Leader.
Mhm.
And I love that. It's really about the social emotional skilling that
Mhm.
allows for leadership. And, and the future of work really is about,
Yeah.
humans solving problems together. The that's the thing that will not be automated.
Mhm.
And so, a human solving problems together could be called a company, but it can also be called a couple. It can be called a community. It can be called a country. And so I think increasing those skills are ones that allow people to be more employable and to
Yeah.
remain employable. And it also allows people to have better relationships, which is a big driver for happiness.
Yes.
So I love CLG. There's another book called Conscious Loving, which is about primary relationships. They positioned it as a dating book, or a couples book, but they say at the beginning, this is all of your primaries. Like,
Mhm.
this is like, how do you relate to your children and your boss and your family and your mom? And so it's relevant for all of that. John Hagel has a book coming out on fear that we covered as on our podcast. I think he believes that fear is the greatest challenge that mankind has to conquer, and that we
Mhm.
need to develop the explorer's mindset, which is sort
Mhm.
of this. It's a marriage between curiosity and passion,
Mhm.
and an open mindset, and
Mhm.
that fear keeps us out of the explorer's mindset. And so I think that book is going to be amazing as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's great. And speaking of books, do you have any books that you're working on? I know you wrote The Sisterhood, and I believe I remember you saying that you were working on a book a while back, and I just was wondering if we can get any
Yeah,
dates on.
actually, I'm working on a couple of books on transformative technology.
Mhm.
One is more of a narrative, and another one is more of a overview. And I actually just got a new representation, so
Cool.
these books will probably be, hopefully, these books will be coming out maybe at the beginning of next year.
Oh, awesome. Congratulations. It's
Yeah,
great.
thanks.
And so speaking of transformative tech, can can we get like an overview? Like, do you mind sharing like the evolution, like how you even started transformative tech?
Hmm. Yeah, so my story is that I was working in video games, living in China, and really loving it. And I had a break between assignments and went on a meditation retreat. And that meditation retreat was, life shifting. It really, it's like in 10 days, I was happy and fearless and had incredibly low levels of inner chatter. And it happened so fast and so simply, that I wanted that kind of experience to be available to everyone. But, the reality is that even a meditation retreat that doesn't cost any money actually does cost money, because the bulk of the world must work,
Mhm.
and taking 10 days off of working for many people, especially many working class people in the US, that is very, very difficult. So, just that alone, even though meditation retreats can often be free, that makes it a very elite
Mhm.
scenario for it to be something that, prevents you from working
Yeah.
for most people, many people in the US. So, the solution was, bringing these types of things to people where they are at. So, leveraging technology for that,
Yeah.
is a part of it. So I walked out of that retreat. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I want this to be available for everyone. And so how do we do that? And the way that we do that um, is to leverage technology. And so I spent about another year with the company, and then I moved to San Francisco and
Mhm.
started a nonprofit, which is what you're a part of.
Yes.
And the purpose of that was to create the space, to create a nexus where the founders, investors, researchers, clinicians, community people, just really the good-hearted people of the world who wanted to have this type of technology available could get together and meet one another and connect and build things.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I remember hearing that story, and I just wanted to ask you again, just in case anyone else hadn't. I wanted to lead into like the growth of, since it's been about 5 years. How
The
long?
first conference was in 2016.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so the growth and development of
Actually,
transform.
the first conference was 2015. Oh
Oh.
my God, it's 2015.
I know it wasn't, so it's been out 6 years. So so yeah, so how do you feel about your thoughts of our growth since 2015? I mean, there's a lot that's evolved within transformative tech.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. That first conference had just like 250 people. And,
Was it
our last in 2015,
was it
and I'm sorry?
global then? Because now we have like global people coming from all over the world.
The first one was probably more local in Palo Alto, but that first one was like 250. And then the last pre-COVID live conference, we had over 1,000 people.
Yeah.
And so, it was, it's really, really grown. When we really, really got global was at the beginning of the Transformative Tech Academy, the TTA, where we had, people participate from all over the world, and that's what really globalized us.
That's what
And so,
that's
yeah,
what
and that's where you came in. And but one of the reasons why we did the TTA was because I was noticing people were finding us, like I was getting emails from all over the world. And so it was like, okay, there's people out there outside of the Bay, outside of the US, who want
yeah.
to be a part of this. And so the TTA was the thing that made that possible.
Yeah.
And so we've really grown. I think a lot of it is awareness has grown, interest has grown. And now, it's really taking on a life of its own, which I love. And so, what we really want to do this year is, really support the chapters in expanding their footprint. I love it when our chapters partner with accelerators, um, and to have a base of operations that way.
Yeah.
And I think, overall, with the shifts with, the Center for Humane Tech and, the light that they shone on the issues around attention economy, social networks, and sort of like those uses of tech, that were increasing stress and anxiety in people. All of that has made people more interested in creating the type of tech that we build together.
Yeah. 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 Um, and so speaking of like this year, with transformative tech, I know we have like our discovery series.
Hmm.
And so I was just wondering what excites you most about like the themes are pretty incredible, and the series is really interesting. And I was just curious, like, what excites you most about what we're doing around these themes?
Yeah, I mean, all of those themes in the Discovery series are, areas that I am interested in.
Mhm.
The and I'm sure as we do each theme, I'll be the most interested in that one. Like, we were working on the space one, and I put space there because, one, a lot of it was because it was really unexpected.
Mhm.
And but what many people don't know is that, the bulk of our technology industry today,
Mhm.
came from the Apollo mission. And putting a human on the moon. So you can sort of like Kevin Bacon, much of the technology we have today from, the companies that were begun in order to accomplish that goal. So, so when we think about space, when we think about space exploration, it isn't for me, a way to, get off of this planet and, and leave our responsibilities behind. It's that we already have much precedent that when humanity sets a great goal like that requires so much innovation, and discovery in order to accomplish, it has what's called terrestrial benefits. It comes back to Earth and has benefits. And so just, earlier this week, one of the interviews that I did was with Frank White, who is the astronaut who coined the term, the overview effect. And this is, an interesting effect that has happened to astronauts from many different countries. And it's basically when they're in space and they see the entire planet, and it rotates every 90 minutes. They see a complete turn, is like a full day. It's like, yeah, it rotates completely. So 24 hours for us is like 90 minutes in space, or they're rotating that quickly. Um, and there's no borders, there's no races, there's no religions. It's just one planet, and it really fundamentally changes them. For some, it's deeply spiritual. Some come back and become environmentalists. Some come back and become, like voracious peacekeepers, advocates for peace and conflict reduction. And it has this like really tangible effect. And so there's actually several transformative technology companies that are trying to mimic the overview effect. Because right now it's like only thousands will be able to go into space for a while. But if you could bring the overview effect back to Earth and have that impact on people so that people could, really sort of see us as one, that would be pretty extraordinary.
So that's why Elon and them are all like taking trips to to space.
Well, unknown. But that's what there have been enough people who have had that experience and that transformation. That I think that there's something there for
there
us.
is. No, I do. I believe. I mean, talk about just being. Truly just being. Like in space, you just are. All you can do is just be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, how much time do we have?
We have about another 10, 12 minutes.
Oh, great. Well, one, I know like there has been talk about a certification for transformative tech. Do you think we'll have that coming this year, or is it more like 2022?
That's going to roll out this year for sure.
Okay. Oh, great. And what can we look forward to?
I'm going to let Paula unveil that.
Yeah.
But it will be it'll be a valuable certification, we believe.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And we're going to try to get it credited and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So the other thing I kind of wanted to go in and ask you a little bit more about your thoughts on, like we were talking earlier about DEI stuff, and I kind of also wanted to hear more, like what are your thoughts about epigenetics? That was something I'm interested in maybe posing with our pod, when the transformation of like trauma through the gene. And so I was thinking that could be something to also like explore in our pod. I'm going to set up a diversity, equity, and inclusion pod. And so that was something I was thinking about pulling in. And I was just curious on what your thoughts would be on that.
Well, there's been some really interesting research, mostly with Holocaust survivors, or children of Holocaust survivors, of the epigenetic changes that come from trauma. So there's that body of research. There's also some research on people whose parents the epigenetic impact of famine,
Mm.
on people who have experienced, whose parents have experienced famines,
Mhm.
and how that shows up. And then there's some early stuff on starting. There's a good body of research on it, on sort of like the epigenetic impact of trauma and violence
Mhm.
on things like obesity
Mhm.
and other things. Like it shows up
Mhm.
in most of the studies have been done in low income communities.
Yeah.
So there are baskets of documented research that's getting um, more and more uh, filled out. Then
Mhm.
you have just the overall science of genetics,
Mhm.
and this realization that as much as people feel is happening in the DNA, there's a lot that's happening in the RNA,
Mm.
and the RNA is where the epigenetics is at.
Mhm.
So I think it's still very early,
Yeah.
in terms of like something being, you know, uh, getting past correlation into causation. But I think it's a really
Mhm.
ripe area,
Mhm.
because theoretically, if you could, theoretically, it could be very powerful. I'll just say that. It's also like another area where I'm really looking forward to a continued deepening of the science is on gut biome,
Oh.
you know, and the ties between gut biome and psychological health. It's still just in correlation. It's not in causation. But there's things like, you can identify someone with schizophrenia with a 95 plus percentage point just from looking at stool,
Wow.
and so schizophrenia is a pretty hardcore,
Oh.
illness. And so, how is it all connected? But it's kind of amazing that you could identify a mental illness from stool,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know. So there's something there,
Yeah.
about it. And so, what would be amazing is a world where, we can treat stress and depression in the grocery store,
Oh, totally.
like that would be amazing.
Yes.
And it's kind of one of those things. One of the funny things about technology is the number of times we, discover something as fact that your grandmother would say, "Oh, well, that's obvious," you know. When it becomes real for us, it's like there's something about, food made with love, right?
Exactly.
For me, my grandmother's collard greens, it's like there's so much love in those, right?
Yes, and it does something for you mentally,
Yeah.
comforting.
Yeah. And then, if we do discover that those are those ties and they become scientifically proven, then that says a lot about important things like, really getting rid of food deserts, and
Yeah.
food equity and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I was just looking at World Economics, like IG, and they were talking about there's like over 70 um, food forests in the United States where there are food deserts or places where there are food deserts. What they've been doing is like in most of the, I guess, areas that are more rural, they're creating they're taking the forest and creating a garden, a big garden where anybody can come and get food, and the
Mm.
community helps to keep it going. There's one outside of Atlanta that they were kind of really pumping up or advertising, and I was like, wow, that is amazing. I love that. So yeah, that's one way that they were trying to overcome these food deserts.
Yeah,
But
I think that, and it's like, you know, community have a lot of other, benefits too. It's like humans need one of the things that's really interesting about, technology applied to this area is that, you know, um, technology is great for identifying patterns,
mhm.
and connections between things, because it's sort of like what a computer can track, or what software can track, And so, you know, the ability to actually, you know, quantify and prove, you know, if you took a community garden and then you were able to, you know, do a network effects map on top, you know, a social connections map, then also track health data and
Mm-hmm.
food data, and then, you know, layer in. There was a really interesting study that I saw that was done on it. It was a mental health study, and it was done in maybe Philadelphia. I have to remember which one it is, but they basically found in the same neighborhood 3 squares, and or, you know, squares with, like, you know, like a square and it's got houses around it. So 3 squares. And it was a low income neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
One they cleaned up, one they left, and it was their control. The second one they completely cleaned up, and the third one they cleaned it up and made it beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And then they did mental health studies before and after over the course of like 3, 6, and 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
And the mental health of the people who were around the beautified garden, you know, was greater,
Exactly.
um, you know, just from that one change. And so, you know, one of the things that, you know, we can do with technology, and where I think we're going to see a huge renaissance in psychology, and or understanding of human psychology, is the ability, you know, to use technology to sort of like, you know, track um, the compounded effects of these types of things, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and that's really sort of what we need it for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, you know, when that happens, then when we're doing city design and community design and things like that, you know, it will become clearer what levers we need to pull. The issue, of course, is, you know, there's a lot of work between here and there,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of like the actual like academic body of work,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like we need to know that things do what we think they do,
Mm-hmm.
um, and not just what we want them to do. So, but I think all of that's coming.
Yeah, no, that would be amazing, especially because I feel like I get some healing whenever I'm just in the garden and getting my hands in there outside of just being able to have the produce but just being around nature, just and digging and creating my own resources. It's just for me an experience that really gives me a lot of peace. Um, yeah, but I wanted to tell you also, like we were talking about the conference when we were in person 2 years ago. You shared a story about before transformative tech, like you came into wanting to give back to humanity. You were already doing some work, and basically I think it inspired your book, The Sisterhood.
Mm-hmm.
You were working with some ladies, and one of the things that I remember most is that you the reason why you started working with those women, young women, and I'll let you talk more about it, but was due to a pageant. And I am a former pageant queen, and I wanted you to share that story because it had a lot of similarities to what brought me into my own work with doing cultural trauma informed social emotional learning. So
Oh,
um,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I wrote a book called The Sisterhood, and it came out of, you know, having done a lot of community service and realizing that, you know, just speaking at someone is not the same as you really sort of getting inside them. And, you know, for me personally, reading had been, you know, something where, um, you know, where it sort of like really got inside of me. And so I thought naturally to use books. One of the other things that happens is that people don't really realize is that we subvocalize often when we read.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're actually hearing your own voice inside your head while
Mm-hmm.
you are reading. And that makes it very personal for you. right? And so, you hear yourself telling you, how to think about things as opposed to, someone speaking at you. And so, in the book, I used to tell, I had sort of 9 traits that I recommended that young people cultivate. And those 9 traits turned into 9 characters. And so the Sisterhood has 9 women in it who build a multinational tech company together. And so it's a great book. You can check it out on Amazon.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
and thanks so much for your service in our community.
Oh, no, thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate this, this time. And so with the wrap-up question, just one more question. What should we make sure we don't miss this year? Like for the community, everyone watching, that we should not miss out with transformative tech? Like,
well, so don't miss the conference this year. Exactly. That's for sure. And then, really we're revamping and we'll be, coming out with our new look and new programs in April. And so, the certification programs and other ways to become more active in the community. Do not miss those. And then also, like, this is your year. This is your moment. The world has finally decided that the things that you build are important. So, if you've been at it for a while, and I know the hustle can be long, rest up and start again, because this is the beginning of what we've been waiting for.
Yes. Exciting.
Great.
Are we virtual at the conference?
Yes, this year. It's what you can count on, and to organize an event, you have to do what you can count on.
Yeah, exactly. I understand. So. Well, we'll see you virtually at the conference, definitely, but hopefully before then too.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
It puts a smile upon my